Hey everyone, it's me, Dr. Whimsy, and today is kind of an interesting subject on Broke Aristocrats. Today we're talking about Plan B. Do you have a Plan B? I certainly hope you do. And we're going to talk a little bit about my Plan B and my struggles with Plan B. All right, so if you are in the Frugal community and if you have been watching these types of videos, you know that there are a couple of rules for being in the Frugal community, but the number one rule is to live below your means, preferably dramatically below your means. The less money you spend, the quicker you can pay off debt and you can begin building wealth. Now, I have a budget, and I'm sure you have a budget too, and I always have to tweak the budget depending upon how much money I made that month, because I do have a small business and the income changes, but for the most part, I'm usually pretty good, give or take. I usually stay within my budget. If I go over my budget, it's usually in months where I brought in a lot more money than I had anticipated. My budget is kind of cool in the sense that I took the minimum of what I think I'm going to bring in for my business, and I had that be my budget. So anything over that is great. That can go towards the piggy banks that I have. So my piggy banks are a certain portion goes into my savings account because I'm different than Dave Ramsey. I started with $1,000 in my emergency fund, and then I began paying off my credit cards. I was credit card debt free. I think it was 6 months ago, and I put that on, or no, it was less than that. It was about 4 or 5 months ago. I put that on YouTube. But during that process of getting out of debt, I did continue to build up that emergency fund, which is step 3. And the reason I did that is because I'm a single woman living in Los Angeles, and for my own safety, I knew that should something happen to me, God forbid, I should get sick, or I should lose my job, or have to find a new place to live, I knew that $1,000 wasn't going to cut it. So for that reason, I chose to continue to build my emergency fund. So that was one piggy, was every month I put a little bit, I squirrel away in savings. The other piggy is that I planned for my retirement immediately. Not a lot, I don't put a lot in there while I'm paying off debt, but I did pay myself first. That's automated. It goes into an E-Trade account, and in the E-Trade account, I then select the index funds based on my own personal research. And I've been slowly, over the last few years, able to build a small retirement from that. And then my third piggy bank is debt reduction. Now we're focusing on student loan payments, being out of student loan debt. And those are my piggies. Those are my piggies, in addition to paying for my 4 walls and everything else. So now we have to talk about Plan B. Now, Plan B is one of those things that nobody likes to think about. We all want to be optimists, and being an optimist is really great, but my question to you is, do you have a Plan B? Here's what can go wrong if you don't have a Plan B. Say, for example, the stock market crashes and you see a drop in investments of 35 to 40% of everything you've been squirreling away in your retirement for 20, 30, 40 years. Now, as Dave Ramsey likes to point out, it will all eventually crawl back and everything will be fine. But what if you're 60 years old, 65 years old, and you don't have 5, 10, 15 years to wait while the stock market recovers? That is thinking about Plan B. So when you diversify your portfolio, it's because hopefully you're thinking about Plan B. You're thinking about, well, what if? What if the stock market crashes 35%? How am I going to survive a crash of 35, 45%, theoretically of my portfolio? The housing market crashes. Say you decided to put no money in the stock market and said, no, I'm putting all of my money into paying off my mortgage early, and my retirement investment is going to be my house. Well, what if we have another massive crash of the housing market and you've put 250, 400,000, who knows, amount into your house, and now your house has been devalued by 25, 35, 45%. And so, you guessed it, you now have lost a huge amount of your retirement because of the housing market crash. That is preparing for a plan B. Have you diversified for that plan B? And then consider the possibility of an accident. Do you have a plan B if you should become seriously ill? If your spouse becomes seriously ill? If you have an accident? Do you have a plan B for that? Do you have a plan B if you lose your job? How are you going to make it if you lose your job? Do you have a plan B if the house burns down or if you're evicted? Always looking at, think on the bright side, but also prepare for the worst. Think about, do you need to write it down, make a list of every possible horrible thing that could happen, and then, what is my plan B? You may have to do that. This is one of those unfortunate, this is one of those unpleasant YouTube videos that nobody likes to look at, nobody wants to talk about, and it's certainly not the more pleasant YouTube video that I've shot. But I really hope that people do have a plan B and are preparing for the worst. Hope for the best, continue to optimize your life and stay positive, but I want people to understand that we always have to also prepare for the worst, or as what Dave Ramsey says, Murphy calling. Here's a great book that I wanted to talk a little bit about also on this video today, and that is the Tightwads Gazette. And the reason why I really like the Tightwad Gazette is because she talks, this is a woman, I can never say her name, I'm sorry, Amy Dageson, I just can't. But she did a newsletter called the Tightwad Gazette. It's since closed down, and it gives you thrifty ideas for how to live below your means. And it's a wonderful book, and it's very entertaining, and I highly recommend if you don't already have it. Most frugal people have it in their home. But what I liked about that book is that she talked about the fact that if you live dramatically below your means, should something unfortunate happen, you know you're going to be okay because you're already living so frugally that you can weather the ups and downs, you can weather the storms of life. I think that that is so wise, and I think she is so right about that. I'm not the most frugal channel. I buy organic when I can. We teach you how to stretch it out. We teach you how to get the best quality food for the least amount of money, and to eat the healthiest you can for the least amount of money. That's one of the things we do here at Broke Aristocrats, but I certainly don't think that we are the most frugal channel. There are things I like to do that certainly are not considered frugal. I like to occasionally go out and have one of those coffees that Dave Ramsey is always saying we shouldn't go out and, pay off your debt. Don't go out and have any lattes. Occasionally I like to go out and have myself a cup of coffee. I don't do the lattes. I do the $4 gourmet coffees. So, I occasionally do splurge. But I also have a plan B. And in the plan B, I try to see just how low I can get my budget. So I always tell people, have your budget, live below your means, live your life. Don't be so frugal unless your situation is really, really critical. You don't want to be so frugal you become depressed. I did that in the beginning. I was so frugal, I was depressed. I didn't want to get out of bed. I did a YouTube video about it. I said, Dave Ramsey made me so depressed I didn't want to get out of bed. What made me depressed was that I had gotten so frugal, I felt guilty about even buying a piece of chocolate. I mean, you can become so frugal that it actually can create depression, and we don't want that. But at the same time, we have to prepare for plan B. So we want to live frugally, we want to do it in a way that's practical and reasonable without making us too upset, and we want to adjust it based on our individual circumstance. If you are in serious financial trouble, obviously you're going to have to be extremely frugal. But if you're just living below your means and you've got a good system going, that's great. Still have that plan B. So say, for example, in my frugal lifestyle, I'm living on, well, I can say that I'm living on about 70 to 75% of my income conservatively. But in my frugal plan B, I would be able to live on about 55 to 60% of my income. So that is really what I wanted to talk about today. Really sit down and have that unpleasant conversation with people in your family. Make that budget, make that plan B budget, and see if you have, and set yourself up for, should something pretty horrible happen, you're going to be okay because you've already put the safety nets in place for surviving should the unfortunate happen. Okay, I want to thank you for watching this video of Broke Aristocrats. Be sure and share, like, subscribe, and tell me what you are doing to take care of yourselves while living below your means. I'd love to hear your feedback, and thanks for watching. Bye, everybody.